Alright, everyone, welcome back. So, the season begins in 1 week. We've been waiting so long. It begins in 1 week, finally. So, I figured, you know what? I've been thinking of some new ideas to do for this season, and I figured, why not make one specific video talking about each NHL team's biggest question heading into 2023-24? Basically means like, oh, how are they going to do this year, or how is this one part of their team going to do, or how is this one player of their team going to do. I will be honest, a lot of these kind of are the same. I didn't go like into the specifics and say like, oh, does Philip Tomasino have a 70-point season or something like that? Like I wasn't going also like into it. I really kind of just use the same batch of ones. I still make them, unique for every team, but I obviously, a lot of these teams, some of them are in similar spots, so it's really right to put them in the same category, I guess. So we're gonna go in alphabetical order. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. But anyways, I'll just get straight into it. So starting off with the Anaheim Ducks. How much improvement are we going to see? You want to see improvement out of Anaheim, obviously, this year. And with a year like last year, almost anything could be better than that. So honestly, we should see some improvement, especially if the younger guys keep coming into the roster and keep building for their own. They just re-signed Trevor Zegras yesterday. Drysdale's yet to be signed there too, though. But overall, Anaheim moving in the right direction. It's just a wonder of how good are they going to be this coming year, but it isn't expected for them to be that good. Arizona, I have seen this a lot, and it's really surprised me. Playoffs. Could Arizona make the playoffs? I don't know. I don't really know why this is an argument. And before you jump at me and say, "Oh, you hate Arizona," I'm a Coyotes fan. I root for the Arizona Coyotes. I have been for the past almost 6 or 7 years or so. And for a team like them, like their forward core is great. I think the forward core is much better than it was in previous years. It's dynamic, especially Logan Cooley coming into his own and Barrett Hayton. You're having a solid roster there forward wise. The goaltending is solid, but the defense just isn't great. It isn't. It looked better in the global series and the games that I watched during the preseason. But preseason's preseason, so we'll obviously see how it fares against other teams. But really, they shouldn't make the playoffs this year. If they do, then I mean, hey, rebuild's gone better than we thought. But if they don't, I'm not too concerned. You want to see improvement in the standings, and that's what I hope we'll see this coming year. Boston. Boston's obviously a team that's in a weird spot. I asked this multiple times. Are they still a playoff team? Are they still that playoff team that we know them as? And I'm going to say yes, but they're not. But I think it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. They're not the team they were last year. They weren't. They lost Bergeron. They lost Krejci. Their forward core took a hit, but their defense is still great, and their goaltending is still great. So I think that's enough to make them a playoff team. Maybe not top three, maybe a wild card spot, but they still should be a playoff team this coming year. Buffalo is just playoffs. I mean, that's the question that's been with Buffalo for a very long time, and it should be the question this year: is the team going to make the playoffs this year? And a better question may even be: could Devin Levi lead them to the playoffs? That might be a better question, to be honest. But yeah, like with Buffalo in that division, it's a very competitive one, and it's definitely going to be hard for them to stay in the race, especially with a lot of teams in that division. But there's obviously questions defensively and the goaltending, even though they think that it's going to be great. We don't fully know it will be this year yet. So obviously there is the worry and concern there with the Buffalo Sabres for sure. But hopefully they should make a close run at it. Calgary, sorry, not Carolina. That's next team. Calgary is, can they return to the playoffs? I mean, like 3 straight questions or 4 straight questions just about playoffs. And yeah, I think they can. I think last year they had a lot of bad luck. Had a few of those overtime games gone their way, or had they won in regulation, they probably would have made it over Winnipeg. They could have been a 48-50 win team had they won like even like half of those overtime losses. But that would have earned them a lot of extra points. And with Calgary, I think they have a good roster overall. I think Backlund being the captain may help them out with leadership and things like that. The chemistry, I think, might be a little bit better. So yeah, they hopefully should make a return to the playoffs this coming season. I would like to see it. Carolina is, can they get over the hump? And let me just say, the hump basically means past the Eastern Conference Finals, because that seems to be their ceiling. Every time in the past couple of years, they made it to the conference finals and have just been eliminated. They just cannot seem to get over that hump, basically. And I will say this past year, and I've said it so many times in Hurricanes-related videos and such, but it was such a competitive sweep. It was probably one of the closest ones I've ever seen in my life. But regardless, I think they have a chance to, if Svechnikov can stay healthy. They had that entire playoff run without Svechnikov, so they should do well if he's there. And I mean, like, people were saying, oh, their defenses or their offense is not that good. They did that without Svech. They're fine. And then obviously the defense is insane and the goaltending is great. So they have a good team right now. They have a good shot at doing some good. Blackhawks, this is probably the only specific player question, because honestly, Chicago, even though they'll be better, it's once again going to be a tough watch this year. It's how good is Bedard? How good is Connor Bedard going to be this coming season with Chicago? Is he going to, put up a 50, 60-point season, be kind of an average rookie, or is he going to put up a 70, 80, 90-point season like I've seen some people say he might? I honestly don't know personally. We got to find out until the season starts. That's definitely a thing that I'm thinking about. But Bedard, definitely a guy you want to look into there. If you're a Chicago fan, for sure. But they will be a tough watch this year. Bedard's going to be the only exciting factor. The Colorado Avalanche, can they return to the Cup? Meaning how last year they lost in round 1 to the Seattle Kraken. Can they go back to being a Cup contending team after that? I think, yeah, they still have a roster. They had a lot of bad luck last year. I've seen some people pick them for the Cup. So definitely is a possibility they do go for another one this year. And I think for sure they should be a team that has a shot at it. Columbus is improvement again. They're one of those teams that had a really bad season last year. You want to see improvement out of the younger players in the draft and such. You want to see improvement in the forwards, the defense, the goaltending. I think you will. It just won't be substantial improvement. It'll be small little building steps till they're finally a playoff team again. But yeah, Columbus definitely should see some improvement. Next up then, we got the Dallas Stars. The question for the Stars with me is Cup. Stanley Cup is my question with Dallas, because I think they are there. They are a Cup contending team. But obviously, if you want to go more specific, you could say defense. That's another good one there too. But obviously, can they contend for one? Absolutely. The defense is the only concern that I have. It was a concern last year. It's going to be again this year. That was why they lost in the conference finals against Vegas, in my opinion. But hopefully, they should have a much better shot this year at contending for a Stanley Cup. But yeah, they are a really good team. Detroit, I've seen this a lot. Return to the playoffs. Yeah, people think Detroit could make it, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but I'm saying that I just don't think that they're there. I really don't think that. I guess that is that they're wrong. I just don't think that they're there yet. I look at that defense; it's not all too enticing. They solved one of their problems. It was the forward core scoring. DeBrinket's going to help out with that. Absolutely, they're going to score a lot more this year, be way more entertaining. But they aren't a playoff team just yet. They just aren't there yet for me to say, yeah, they are a playoff team and they can make it over teams like Ottawa, Buffalo. I just can't see it right now. I know people disagree with me. You may disagree with me in this comment section, but I just can't see it. Edmonton Oilers. Can they get over the hump of, being just a regular playoff team and be a cup contending team is my honest question. I think, yeah. I think this year they absolutely could. People forget that Stuart Skinner in that playoff run was just a rookie. He was a rookie, straight up. And it wasn't like, and he didn't play horrible either. He just didn't look that good in the second round and a little bit in the first round. And it's understandable because he literally was a rookie. Like, not everyone's going to have a Jordan Bennington-like year and carry their team to a Stanley Cup. No, he did all the carrying in the regular season. So, obviously, he will be improved. The defense will be as well. It's all up to McDavid and see how he's going to do. But overall, I think they can get over the hump. Florida Panthers. I don't know. Like, I've thought of a question for Florida. I'm gonna say can they bounce back from that finals loss? Because a lot of people are doubting them right now, myself included. I've seen a lot of predictions have them seventh in the Atlantic. And people say, and Panthers fans disagree with that. They think that they're going to be a playoff team this year. Maybe they will. I think they have a decent roster, but I can't say it's a roster that's going to make them go far in the playoffs. I'm not saying they'll be bad either, but like I don't know if they have that roster, or if Kachuk can just carry them again. And Bobrovsky, is he going to be the same guy that he was in the playoffs? We just don't know these things, if they're going to happen or not. So obviously we'll find out. But yeah, Florida, they're in a very interesting spot right now. The LA Kings is, how good will the goaltending be? And I know LA fans have heard this 1,000 times, and I'm sorry to bring it up once again. But you obviously have your three-string triangle of David Riddick, Cam Talbot, Phoenix Copley. And Copley does look like he's going to be the starter. I liked his numbers in that year with LA. I thought he had decent numbers for a younger player. But obviously there is some concern there with how he's going to do, being the starting goaltender full time, most likely. So we'll obviously find out. He's very interesting there for LA, and he's a guy that could make or break the team if we're being entirely honest. The Minnesota Wild. Can they get past round one? I mean, that's one of the questions I've been asking for a few years now at this point. But it is the question: can they get past the first round of the playoffs this year? And I think they can. I think it's very possible, that they can get over that hump. Obviously, as I mentioned, paying Parise and Sutter the money they are, just obviously doesn't help you make a contending team, and it makes it worse. But I think they are sticking with the core that they have, and obviously we'll see if that helps them out. Montreal is improvement. You want to see improvement out of the Canadians, and you will. You want to see that improvement from the guys, and hopefully they should be better, but they really probably won't be an Atlantic favorite for the playoffs. They probably will be last in the division again. It's unfortunate to say, but this could be the last year they're in that last place spot before things start getting better. Nashville Predators. My question there, and they're in a weird spot for me too, was return to the playoffs. Can Nashville make a dynamic return to the playoffs after barely missing last year? I think it's possible. The forward core is the defense is all right, and the goaltending is great. So we're obviously going to find out, how those newer players on that forward core, because it got a lot of change ups, it got a lot of swaps, it got a lot of new guys in it, and a lot of old guys left. So obviously, I look at Calgary for an example. They're a good example of this. Obviously, they had a lot of changes last season, and this season they just didn't look like the Calgary Flames. Could we see that happen again with Nashville? Brand new coach, brand new players on the roster. We're obviously going to find out if that's the factor that happens, of course. But obviously, Calgary didn't miss by much, and Nashville was actually better than them last year. So we'll find out. New Jersey Devils, it's Stanley Cup. They're 5-0 in the preseason right now. They're doing absolutely awesome. I think the question really is, can they go for a Stanley Cup? I think that is the question now. And I think they can. It may take some years to get some experience, but I absolutely think they can go for a Stanley Cup this year. New York Islanders is playoffs. That's another one. Can they make the playoffs? They are, and I hate to say it, they are a mediocre team as people profile them to be. They aren't the best roster in the NHL. Are they a contending roster? Yeah, they should be a contending playoff roster. But obviously, a lot of teams could rise up above them in the standings. The Penguins are going to be fighting for a wild card spot as well. So we'll obviously find out there, what happens if we're being honest. There with the New York Islanders. The Rangers, same question, Stanley Cup. I think they can. It's just a little bit more of, like, are they going to be able to, show up in the playoffs? That's another good one. But obviously they are a team that lost in the first round last year abysmally. They're looking to bounce back off of that with not a worse roster, but a more different roster than previous years. And then the Ottawa Senators are another big team that I look at with a lot of questions. Can they return to the playoffs? That is another good one. Can they make a return to the playoffs this coming season? And that is something I've seen a lot with Detroit, Buffalo, and Ottawa. I think Ottawa, out of the three, has the best shot at going far. So I'm definitely putting my money on them. I think they have a better core overall. The goaltending is the only question I have. Hopefully, they'll get Shane Pinto signed. That should happen very soon. Um, but obviously, the Senators, they're looking for a return to the playoffs, or we could see some changes for sure. For the Philadelphia Flyers, I just said draft because I like what's the draft prospects looking like? Because they will be bad this year. They are supposed to be really bad this coming season, and it's expected. But maybe they won't be so bad because I've seen guys like Couturier, Atkinson come back and they've played pretty well. So maybe they aren't the worst team in the world out of the gate, but they really should be keeping their eyes on the draft. Mainly, they really should be, if I'm being honest. Because everything else besides that top six, I guess, is terrible. So take it with what you will. Penguins, they're a much more interesting Pennsylvania team for sure. Is this the last ride? Is this the last chance for that team to make a run at the Stanley Cup? They got Erik Karlsson. I don't think it solved their problems though. I really don't. And I think realistically, like when you look at this team, I think it made them better. Absolutely. I mean, like, there's no doubt. It made them a playoff team. It made them a team that can make it now for sure as a lock. Can they be a cup team, though? Like, can they beat the other teams in that division? Can they beat the Hurricanes? Can they beat the Devils? Can they beat the Rangers? Can they beat the Leafs? Can they beat some of the teams in the Atlantic? Like, can they beat those teams come playoff time? I can't see it. I think their first round exits realistically. I feel like they have too many holes in the roster. I might be wrong, but right now I just look at them as a team that's going to be a first round exit this year, unfortunately. But yeah, is this the last ride potentially? I think it very well might be. San Jose, same as Philadelphia. Draft. You want to look at the draft. Who's the top prospect in the draft? Because they're not going to be good this coming year, so it's expected. Seattle, I said improvement. You want to see improvement from last year, the second round appearance. I feel like they might have a little bit of a regression and maybe miss, but definitely they should be still a good team this coming year. I like their roster overall. I think they should be very fun and exciting to watch, and a team that for sure keep an eye on 23-24. The Blues goaltending, yeah, Jordan Binnington. That is the main guy I'm thinking about there. But can the goaltending, can Binnington stay calm? Can he keep his head? Because if he can, they'll be a better team. But if they can't, then there's no point. And obviously, Joel Hofer is one of the guys who has come into the equation there in St. Louis and could be a guy who steals a starting role from Binnington. I've seen that come up as a possibility. The Tampa Bay Lightning, this is more directed towards the beginning of the season because I think it is something worth talking about. Will the Lightning goaltending sustain them? Will they be able to hold their ground for the first 2 or 3 months of the season until Vasilevsky comes back? My honest answer is I think they can. It's going to be difficult, though. I think for a while they're going to be like Colorado last year, where they were a team that was just barely in the race, barely staying afloat because of the injuries they had. And then Vasilevsky comes back and they take off. I feel like that's what will happen. But I think they will be able to sustain it. I honestly don't know. Toronto, I said progress. And the reason why I said progress instead of improvement is because you want to see with Toronto, even though they got a lot of guys and they lost a lot of guys, and there's a whole discussion there, you want to see improvement come playoff time. You want to see them make it past the second round now and get into the third round and, things like that. You want to see that happen. You want to see some improvement. Yeah, they lost in 5 games in the second round this year, which sucked, but you want to see more improvement out of that roster this coming year. And I think for Toronto, that's a good enough question. Canucks return to playoffs. Can they return to the playoffs this coming year? I've seen it a lot, actually, where people think that Vancouver could make it. I think it's possible, but I don't know. I've put my money on Vancouver so many times, and they have just not been able to do it. They'll start off the year horrible, and that could be like a question too. Can they start off the season well? Because I think if they do, they are a playoff team. They just have had brutal starts to the year every single season. last year felt terrible, so we'll see how this year goes again. Vegas Golden Knights, can they go back to back? I think there's really no other questions you can ask there. I think it's very possible. They have the same roster. They have basically the same roster, just minus a few guys. But overall, they really should be a team that is, once again, another good cup contender in 23-24 for sure. Washington Capitals, the question is return to the playoffs. You want to see the Capitals maybe bounce back from that bad year last year. I don't think they will, but they could. So we'll see. If they can make the playoffs. But realistically, they probably should be like a sixth place team in that Metropolitan Division. And then finally, the Winnipeg Jets. Will they blow it all up this season? If they're really bad out of the gate, I think they will. If they're good, then they're going to try and go for one last kind of run. But, there is a good possibility there that Hellebuck gets traded, Scheifele gets dealt. We could see a lot of moves come trade deadline for sure in Winnipeg. But obviously, we'll find out. Anyways, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, comment down below. I really appreciate it. Make sure to tell me in the comments down below if I'm wrong about any of these questions, if I missed any of questions that are worth answering. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.